Well, fellow Volt Academy cohorts, welcome. It's a pleasure to stand before you among such a distinguished crowd of industry professionals, and I hope you find the next few minutes to be worth your time. We're not going to talk about PCs, and we're not going to talk about Macs. Fresh, clean slate. So when I was first assigned this subject, I'll be honest with you, I hit a really big mental wall. Because I like to talk, and let's jabber, pop culture references, all kinds of fun things. Let's just not talk about politics. Let's not talk about country music. So then, I'm thinking about this, and I'm like, I really don't mind public speaking. I mean, I had to read a poem about bacon in front of 2,000 people in Chicago. That was a lot of fun, and I've done 2 handfuls of weddings. Those are a lot of fun. But there were these weird, semi-stringent, but not really strict requirements put on this. Make it interesting. Check. Make it enlightening. Check. Make it 15 minutes. No promises. So it became very clear to me we could do this on any topic, but it'd be a little bit of a stretch. So I'm trying to run through topics that'd be interesting. The first thing I came up on was how to run a fantasy baseball team. Pass. Oh, this stopped working on me too. So fantasy baseball team. You can go to the next slide. Pass. Early 2000s alternative music. Pass. The 4 parts of a symphony. Pass. Why water sucks and Gatorade is better. Closer. Still a pass. So, I searched near, I searched far. I crashed weddings, I crashed graduations, I looked on podcasts, and I even got on Pinterest, and I was just trying to find some solid ground. The world has a really funny way of smacking you in the face on what you should talk on. A little known fact, my wife and I run a photography business on the side. And by my wife and I, she's the MVP. I'm the guy that carries around the stuff and takes some pictures and keeps the kids from crying, you know, the important things. So she's poured her heart and soul into making this a professional business, and she's become a professional, and it's been one of my greatest joys to watch her develop into what she's become today. So needless to say, when a comment came back from somebody I thought was a friend and a supporter along the lines of, anybody can take a good picture, it's just the camera, I wasn't really understanding. And so I stewed and I got really mad, and I almost made some silly calls to people that could have really gone after them. And I didn't. I stepped back, I calmed down, I took a deep breath, and I realized they just weren't educated that it's not a point and shoot thing when you're using a nice camera. So today we're going to take a quick journey through the intricacies of photography. Hopefully you'll understand a little bit more about what it is. You'll be able to spread the word, and you might even walk away a better iPhone photographer than you were 10 minutes ago. And so first I'm going to state the obvious and the crux of this entire thing. A good camera and a good lens help. I get that. And I also know that your iPhone takes better pictures than anything Ashton Kutcher ever sold in a Nikon Coolpix commercial. So if you want to start immortalizing your pictures in a good way, make them great, right? I'd recommend upgrading to a digital single lens reflex, better known as DSLR camera body. Nikon's got a great D3400. It's a great starter. You can capture an image 95% larger than your average photo. It's got better light sensitivity, more shutter and focus speed options, flexibility controls, and the ability to upgrade pieces a lot easier. This camera also allows you to throw it on auto, look through the back in real time, point and shoot, and don't do that. It's the worst thing you can possibly do. All it does is make your camera this really expensive flip phone. The auto function, it delays your shutter speed so much, 99.9% of your pictures are going to be blurry. You got to learn to look through the viewfinder where I have the arrow pointing there, and you're going to apply what you're going to learn. So Lens 101. The lens you choose depends on the subject matter you're shooting. If you want an image that has a bokeh background, you look at a lens with a higher aperture. See the dots in the background? That's called bokeh. Fair trade. Shooting a landscape, you're going to want a wider angle lens. Shooting a sports or a moving subject, you're going to want something with some vibration reduction. You also got to consider your space. Are you in a small space? Is it wide open? Are you in a nursery? Are you at a reception venue? A good starter lens is the Nikon Nifty 50 1.8 millimeter. It's got good range. It's easy for portraits. It has natural bokeh. It's low light capable, and it's not too zoomed, and it provides vibration reduction. So next we're going to dismantle the point and shoot argument. As you set up for your picture, you need to be cognitive of your lighting. Is your subject facing the light source? If so, I bet they're squinting, or they're dark, or they're blurry. When you get ready to shoot, lighting has to be your priority number 1. What time of day is it? Are you indoor or outdoor? Is it sunny or cloudy? There's a constant battle with outdoor photography to chase shade. Shade makes all pictures better. If it's not possible, you need to position your subject away from the sun or at an angle and adjust your camera settings to still capture them naturally. Inside, utilize your flash, and for the love of God, not that pop-up flash that comes up when you have it on auto. You want to throw the light up, not at your subjects. That's going to provide a natural white light. It's going to reflect off the ceiling and the walls, and it's going to provide you a higher quality picture. And nobody's going to see spots. So once you know how to work with your lighting, you're going to take a picture that looks kind of meh unless you've optimized your camera settings. You need to consider your ISO, or your sensitivity image of the camera. The brighter the shot, the lower your ISO needs to be, with a setting of 100 as the floor. This creates a clean and crisp, grain-free image. A little darker, bump it up to 400. This allows your shutter speed. This increases your shutter speed, but also might add a little bit of noise to your camera. Once you have your ISO set, adjust your aperture. Aperture is the hole in the lens that allows light to travel in. As you move from light to dark, you'll need to adjust this, and think of it like your pupil. The brighter your surroundings, the lower your aperture. Reverse if it's dark. If your aperture is high and the surrounding lighting is bright, the lens is going to be wide open and it's going to wash out everything you take a picture of. If it's reverse, you slow it down, it's going to allow a lot of light in. It's an adjustable setting, and you can see it through the back of that viewfinder. Your camera sensors automatically pick up what it thinks it should be, and you're able to adjust on a wheel in the camera to balance that out. So last but not least, setting-wise, you got to make sure your shutter speed is appropriately set. Shutter speed is the amount of time it takes for the lens to be open to capture the light. Back in the black and white film era, it was how long the film was exposed to the light, and that captured the image. Now it's all digital. You don't want to, if you're in a brighter setting, a quicker shutter speed is best. You don't want a long, drawn-out shutter to, again, wash out your picture. The darker it is, the slower the shutter speed. You'll be amazed near dusk how bright of an image you can capture. And be mindful, the slower the shutter speed, the less room for movement your subjects have. Slower speed leads to blurry photos more times than not. As you can see, shutter speed differentials, that's nanoseconds apart. Just like aperture, you can look through the viewfinder of speed of the camera. Your camera sensors recommend what you should work with, and you can adjust accordingly based on the shot you're taking. So now you got to consider placement. Where are you going to put your subjects in the picture if you're shooting people? Are the colors that they're wearing complementary to the background? Do they clash? Do they blend in? Are they natural? Don't be afraid to move them around. And there's nothing worse than a brown sweater against a pink spray-painted wall. So now it's almost that time. You've got them where you want them. Your settings are on point. You took a test shot, you're pleased with the results. You need to capture your subject. Make sure your subject is the focal point. And if you're using multiple people, make sure your camera has focused on multiple people as focal points. Follow the rule of thirds, meaning that you want your subjects to be just off center. It's been scientifically proven that's more pleasing on the eyes of the viewer. Balance the image diagonally, corner to corner, making sure your subject catches some part of that line. You want to shoot from a lower angle more times than not. If you're on different ground, you need to make sure you're coming up, not down on your subjects, selfies included. I don't know who that person is. You also want to make sure you're using your leading lines so that the image is drawn in. And lastly, be the right distance away that you want to fill the frame with useful space. Not too much sky, not too much grass, not too much concrete. So you're finally ready. Take the shot, take lots of shots, move to the next spot, to angle, pose, shoot again. And while you're doing this, keep in mind that you have learned everything. You have about 2 to 3 seconds between shots and poses. You have to make sure everything is right. You've got even less time if you have children under the age of 16. They always cry. You've got to keep the kids focused. You've got to keep the adults focused. You've got to be thinking, where are we moving next? What's the daylight? You got a cloud rolling overhead. We need to turn angles. Again, a lot goes into it. And we're not going to talk about today, but keep in mind the average photographer spends 2 hours plus for every hour they shoot actually using Photoshop and Lightroom to edit their photos. We're one ahead. And that's not counting time including culling, which is the process of taking all your images on your computer, finding out the ones you want to use. So that is what goes into a picture. Is it easier on an iPhone? Absolutely. It meets most of your needs, right? You can apply the light and the framing principles you learned today and get a really good picture, get hundreds of likes on Facebook and Instagram. But there's a reason you hire somebody that's a professional for birthday parties, weddings, newborn pictures, work parties, sporting events, and so on. So please, take a moment, appreciate the craft, And please don't go through life thinking it's just a point and shoot thing. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk.